Hi guys, my name is Remote Artist and today I'm going to be doing a 10-minute tutorial on how to get started on Ableton Live 10 Intro. So first off, we're just going to go through some basic things on the overlay here, on the user interface. So over this side, you've got your select menu. So this is where you have your sounds, your drum racks, audio effects, MIDI effects, samples, and that's mostly the important stuff. Over here, you have your user library stuff and your current project stuff. That stuff is something that you can look more into once you start building up your own project files. So here, these are all of the beats that I've been working on. And if you want, you can open these up and then you can drag these into this area. So this area, this is your timeline. Now, when you open up a new Ableton set, you will be greeted with this screen. Now, this is a lot more than what you would usually get if I just press Control New and say, yeah, let's just save changes. Then as you can see, it's not as much here. But basically what this interface is, this is more for live sessions, when you're playing your music live, or when you are making ideas and you want to try and figure out what sounds good. But most of the time I tend to spend on this screen because this is a lot nicer to use. So if we go back to the previous set that I had open, so basically this is your timeline. So as you can see, it goes from 1 and all the way as far as it needs. This you can use to traverse within the timeline. So if you can say specifically I want to look at this area here, then you can do that using that. The area down here, this is where you manage the sounds, the samples, or the audio effects and MIDI effects that you want to add. So we'll go through those in a bit. So you have your play button here, you have your pause button here. This is used to record MIDI inputs or to record audio inputs. So you just click it, and what you have to do is you have to have one of these selected, and you just click that video and then it will create a clip for you of where you can just input your own things, right? So I think that's everything. Yep, this is your tempo, by the way, and then these other things you don't really need to worry about too much. But in terms of everything, that is the basics of the UI. So we'll now move on to actually creating MIDI clips, audio samples, etc. So first of all, we're going to look at MIDI clips. So here you'll see that you have all your different channels. So you have MIDI channels, you have audio channels, and then here you have return tracks. So return tracks is what you use to send audio from the MIDI and audio tracks into the return tracks. So as you can see here, this screen shows you the sends that you'll be sending over to the return tracks, but over here you can also see it. I've got these here, and what these do is they're audio effects. So this is reverb. If you double click it, then you can set up however you want it to do, how you ever want it to be, and then this is your second return track. So in Ableton Live 10 Intro, you only get 2 return tracks at a time, but I haven't really found that an issue so far, so I think that's pretty good. And then finally you have your master track over here. So this allows you to add audio effects to the entire sound that is produced. And as you can see here, I've got an audio effect here called a limiter. I'll go through that in a bit. So firstly, we're going to be looking at MIDI tracks. So to create a clip, all you have to do is just double click. You can drag it out for it to be as long as you want it to be. Oh, a bit fiddly here. There we go. And you can drag it out for as long as you want. And then what you can do here, you can set the length of it. So for example, say if you want it to be 4 bars long, you make it 4 bars long. And then now you can start inputting whatever you want. So for example, if I want, I don't know, some just something as simple as that, you can control copy, control paste, just the simple major ascending scale, for example. Then you can just put that in here. You can move it up and down with the arrows, so you can see, you can listen. As you can see, it starts playing the sound based on the MIDI inputs that we put into it. So that's pretty cool. And to access it, you can you can look at the various setups that you can have for the sound. So you can change it for however you want. So if you want more vibrato, you can turn that up, or if you want less, etc. You can play around with those, see what they do. Attack, that just changes the sort of onset for the sound. Release, the higher it is, the longer the sound will go on for, and these other things will change accordingly. And volume, of course, that's very important. So to traverse between those two things there, you just click on these two things down here. Right, now audio tracks. So audio, you can use recording yourself, or you can use the audio samples that are provided to you in Ableton. So personally, when I'm recording tracks, so when I was recording Get Me Out, which is this set, I used a violin, and so in order to record me playing the violin, I used Audacity instead of using the inbuilt audio record function here, because the audio function is actually quite slow. It's got quite a lot of latency with your inputs, so I thought it's better to use Audacity, so then it doesn't mess up as bad. So yeah, so it's pretty simple. All you have to do is you just say you want to be like, okay, I want to add this for some reason. You just drag it out, and you can then move it about. You can also change up the audio sample. So if you double click, it'll give you this. You can change how loud it is. You can transpose it. You can change how fast it is, etc. Again, you can play around with it, but that's just to show you what that does. Right, moving on to these things here, actually, it's something I forgot to say at the start, but what they do is this is to toggle it on and off. So for example, this bit, that is to turn it off. If I want to turn it on, you can hear that. Now if I want to be like, okay, I want to hear what this sounds like by itself, you press the S, and that will solo it for you, so then you can hear it by itself, automatically turning off all the other ones. And to detoggle it, there you go, you just click that. But yeah, you can only toggle one sound to solo. And then you have this, which allows you to give MIDI inputs or audio inputs depending on the channel. This changes the volume of the track. This changes the position. So if I want it all in the left ear, you can hear that's in the left ear. If I want it all in the right ear, then as you can see, that's all in the right. But a lot of the time I just have it in the center, because that's what I prefer. And then these manage your return track. So this is to send it to the A, this is to send it to the B. This middle area you don't really need to worry about too much, especially if you're just starting out on Ableton. But yeah, otherwise that's sorted. Right, moving on to audio effects. Now this is very important. So these allow you to change the sound. So for example, if you want to say, I'm going to change the way how this harp sounds, you click on here, and it says drop an instrument or a sample here. But I want to add in an audio effect. So for example, I might want to manage the EQ levels. I can, yeah, okay, I'll drag this in here, and then you can configure it to however you want it to be. This is to toggle it on and off, and then you can manage it here. Important audio things, audio effects that I use. Also, which you can't decide from one side to the other. Then you have delay here, very important as well, but often I just use the return track. Flanger I use sometimes, phaser again sometimes, reverb I use quite a bit, and then also limiters, very important. So a limiter puts a ceiling on the sound to stop the audio from clipping. So when you're using very heavy bass tracks or tracks with a lot of sounds going on, a lot of things going on, it's very good to have a limiter to stop the audio from clipping. You can tell the audio will be clipping because these mixers here, they will go into the red, and to tell you that you need to add a limiter basically. MIDI effects, they're very simple. What they do is they just add things to the start. So you put it in front of the MIDI sound, and then you can configure it. So this is to do chords. So that obviously sounds terrible because I haven't set it up properly, but you can mess around with it. And yeah, so these just make it a lot easier. It means you don't have to actually like write out all the individual MIDI things, as long as you can set it up correctly. And then finally, I'm going to be moving on to automations. Now these are very useful. If you press A, you can see you get all these weird red lines, and you'll be thinking, what on earth do they do? Very simple. What they do is if you right click on something, you can press show automation, and then what you can do is you can then configure it by adding these red dots or markers as they are, and then you can add new ones, and then you can move it around, you can jiggle it about. So that is very useful, for example, on volume. So I think I've got automation on this one here. So this is that during these times, I want the sound to be less. Let's just turn off the solo here, because I want these two, because these are the chords, if you listen. So that's just the drone, and that's another drone. I want them to be quieter. I want to listen out for this bit, because this, actually no, it's this track, which has got the interesting melodic idea. So I want to make that quieter, so I use these automations in order to achieve that. So they're very useful. You can pretty much automate anything, including volume, return tracks, panning. You can as well. As you can see, show automation, as well as on your audio effects as well. So let me just find where do I have audio effects going on. Yeah, for example here, audio effects, I can be like, okay, I want to automate this. You can automate it very easily like that. The final thing I want to go over quickly is just drum MIDI. So obviously they're a bit different, but you can individually select each drum sound that comes in the drum kit, and then you can swap these out. So you just click that button, it goes into hotspot mode. Then you can preview all the different sounds. You can use arrow keys, makes it a lot easier to traverse. And you can be like, okay, I want this one, and then you just double click and it'll swap out for you. And then just Control Z that if I want to undo that. And then you click that and it comes out of hotspot mode. But that's very useful when you're trying to make your own drum kit. So yeah. And as you can see, just making drum MIDI is different, slightly different, but instead of having notes, you just have the different sounds in the drum kit, and you can configure them based on whatever you want. And I think that is pretty much everything. That wraps up this tutorial for Ableton Live 10 Intro. If you guys do want to see more, then do leave the thumbs up. Please do subscribe, notification bell as well. And yeah, I hope to see you guys soon in the next video. I will be producing more beats and things coming over the next few days, but I'll also be doing a more in-depth tutorial going through a lot of things in Ableton, as well as showing a few tips and tricks that I like to use when I am producing music, a few shortcuts and things like that, which are very cool. And I think if you're especially new to the program, it would be very good for you guys to learn about it too. So do look out for that. So make sure you do subscribe for that, and that should be coming out in the coming weeks. And I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and hope you guys all have a good day. Stay safe. Goodbye.